Welcome to the Project with Sam and Lewis, the podcast that looks at projects throughout pop culture and history. I'm Sam.
And I'm Lewis.
And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about the third episode of the Lazarus Project.
We certainly are. We looked at the second episode and this is a great start. Second episode in episode 49 and the first episode in episode 47.
Wow, well remembered.
Yeah, I had long enough to think of it because I couldn't get my words out my mouth.
Yeah. It's a nice little sci-fi kind of drama, I'd say, isn't it? Yeah.
Time loop.
It's a time loop program, and some big revelations in episode 3, I'd say. So we've got those to talk about. And we also have time codes in the episode description. So we'll be talking a little bit about San Diego Comic-Con and the announcements for Marvel and a couple other things at the end. So if you want to skip to that, feel free.
Yeah, you can do that. And then you can go back in time.
Yeah, turn back time.
You can turn back time. I'm going to try not to sing that this week.
They said it a few times in this episode.
They really did. And every time I was like, yeah.
Back in turn back time.
Yeah.
But before we get into anything, how are you today, Lewis?
Yeah, not bad. My shoulder's still an issue. One day I'll
bingo.
Not complain, right? Yeah. People playing Project Bingo. You cross that one off. But apart from that, fine.
Yeah.
You know, not too much to say. It's not been as hot this week, so it's been a bit more bearable, but not been as nice.
Yeah, I would agree there. Yeah. It's been kind of like a, not necessarily like humid heat, but kind of just like a bit just bleh, really, hasn't it?
Yeah.
So
how have you been?
Yeah, all right, not too bad. Just getting on with it, really, you know, just standard. Yeah, watching a bit of TV, talk about that a bit at the end. Nothing that interesting. Played quite a lot of Unmatched, which I might talk about later.
Oh, yeah.
You're looking up on the shelf. They're down there now.
I was just looking up into the distance, listening.
Yeah.
I know where you keep your stuff.
What's that?
Oh, you know, your robot and your picture of Orlando Bloom.
Yeah, not yet framed, but that was my birthday present my birthday present, the only one I got about 3 years ago. So
is it that long ago?
Maybe more.
I thought you were going to say last year.
No, it definitely wasn't last year. Anyway, first segment.
Yeah.
First segment normally begins quite swiftly, and this time it begins right now. Woo.
Project news.
Swift.
I had everything ready before we started, except that. So something that is going back to a bit of project news from a few weeks ago. This is from NME. Have you heard of said magazine / website?
I don't really have any enemies, to be honest. So I've never heard of the
It's
term.
not enemies. It's the letters N and then the letter M.
Yep.
And then the letter E.
New Musical Express, I think it might stand for.
No, it's National Metrosexual Enterprise.
Ooh, okay, well, I'll have to subscribe then.
Yes. Do you remember metrosexual was a thing?
And it wasn't about sexuality at all.
No,
it was just
like
men who look after themselves.
Yeah.
Wasn't it like David Beckham's a metrosexual because he like does manscaping?
Yeah. It's like, oh, he uses moisturizer.
Oh, there must be something sexual about that.
I feel like that term just kind of died out because everyone's just like, oh, actually, we should look after ourselves, shouldn't we?
And also it's nothing to do with your sexuality, is it? Yeah.
Anyway, Beyonce's Renaissance revealed to be a 3-part project.
Right, I did see something where it said something about part 1 or something like that.
Yeah, a fan who had pre-ordered the vinyl and got it sent early, as quite often does happen,
like a taster promo press thing. Yeah,
apparently in the notes within it says that Beyonce says that this album is the first part of the 3-part project.
Nice.
It's not confirmed if that means like 3 albums or just like an album, a tour, and a film or something,
or even 3 kind of parts of the same album, maybe. Or But I did hear a bit of the lead single that came out because we spoke about it.
We said ago. We inevitably would hear, but I actually haven't.
It's it's quite kind of house music-y. It's more like dancey, electronic-y. She sings, obviously, as she would, but it feels like a sample almost, like if you get from like an old disco song and a house song kind of thing. And I think Drake's new album is quite kind of housey as well. So I feel like
I did see that.
There's a kind of resurgence of, because I was talking to one of our friends about it recently after Glastonbury. The term house music, I don't know masses about it normally kind of thing, but a lot of people think of kind of like very kind of commercial, like minimalist, like electronic dance music that's kind of low tempo. Kind of boring in some ways, some people would say, but
some might.
but the roots of it kind of is more like just disco but made into dance music in the late 70s, early 80s, which that is to me more of an exciting version of house music than I think what's been popular in the last kind of 5 or so years.
Yeah, that's probably fair. I can't say it's a genre that I'm too knowledgeable about.
Yeah, I did watch a 20-minute documentary on All Four, and that talks about the origins of house music in Chicago in the late 70s, early 80s. It was very interesting. So
nice.
I say I wouldn't normally know. I do now know stuff because off the back of that. But yeah. Anyway, so nice. Beyonce does house.
Yeah. So I would say I'm intrigued about what the other two parts of the project are. I'm not particularly, but some people will.
I know what it's going to be. It's going to be drum and bass and then techno for the next two.
Yeah, or the third part of the project is that she is going to guest star on the episode of the Project.
There you go, that's it.
Talking about her latest album, Beyonce's Project.
Beyonce's drum and bass project.
Yeah. There is another article here that I don't really think we need to spend too much time talking about.
Okay.
So I'm going to reframe it in the form of a question.
Oh, God, we can't get away from these quiz questions.
Because, I loved it so much last week.
Yeah.
Who has been named ambassadors of the Ukraine Humanitarian Aid Project?
So is it a group of people?
It is a project alumni.
It's those bloody Eurovision people, isn't it?
It's not.
Oh no, okay.
The project is in the headline aside from their name.
Okay. No idea.
They were an answer to a question last week.
They were an answer to a question last week. Is it multiple people then, or is it a singular person? Any other? And
another clue, this is also from NME.
Yeah. God. No, not Imagine Dragons.
It's Imagine
Dragons. Come on. Oh dear. Wow. Okay. I mean, good for them, and I would say good for Ukraine. I'm not a massive fan of Imagine Dragons as they came across last week.
But they
stomp, clap, shout music.
They've got a big following, so using their popularity can only be a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, if it's for humanitarian purposes, yes, I would agree.
Yes. So good for them.
Yes.
And our final bit of news, something that we briefly spoke about before we started.
Yeah, it popped up on the TV a second ago.
Saudi Arabia plan 100-mile long-mirrored skyscraper megacity project.
Yes, it's called The Line. Is that the working name for it anyway?
Due to be just 200 meters wide. And you watched the video as well.
Yeah, there's
just a really long mirror.
Yeah, and it's kind of the idea is really interesting, but it's kind of like a compact city where each kind of block is vertical and each is kind of self-sustaining, and you don't need to move to other ones to get stuff.
And I think it said like everything is in like a 5-minute walk, like schools, shops.
And there's a rail thing that goes like 20 minutes either way or something, so you can get to the end. And it was based 6 hours from most kind of economic hubs,
it's just like in the middle of the desert.
And like the idea is cool, but the way it's presented in the video is so kind of, I was saying to you earlier, it's a bit like something you'd see at the start of a Resident Evil film.
Yeah.
Like, welcome to the city of the future, and then it cuts and there's just like zombies everywhere.
Yeah, and like it looks quite cool, and it looks like they've got loads of plants and stuff inside, so it's not just like a concrete block.
And part of the idea of the layout is so that it doesn't disrupt the kind of natural surroundings kind of thing, and they can fit something that would really disrupt kind of nature and stuff in a very small kind of space.
It's got no cars. It's basically like the city of the future.
Yes, and it's the kind of thing that you'd even see. You see it in like Simpsons and stuff, where they're like, "This is what the future will look like in 1999," and it's like the Jetsons shit. It feels like the closest thing we've had to that. Like, I've never seen a thing that's. I mean, Elon Musk's always being like, "Let's do this," but you don't see it in such like a corporate like advertising fashion.
Yeah,
really,
like when we see like in like impressions of the future, we're often like laughing at like previous generations, but this is our generation's impression of the future.
Exactly.
But you know, if it comes off, it could be a pretty good thing. Like it's climate positive and space
it's like
positive,
carbon neutral and
all that malarkey.
I think the issue is that I mean it's reserved for a wealthy few, isn't it? The only thing that it could do is if it makes money and if it's kind of profitable for people, it will potentially inspire other things like that. But the amount of money that has to be put into this has got to be astronomical. So like it's, and also they can't just like put one of them like in the English countryside, really, because we haven't really got that much space. Isn't it like, is it 38 kilometers or something like that?
Something like that. Let me have a look. It's 200 meters wide and can home 9 million people, which is like the population of London.
Yeah.
It's going to cost the first phase, the finish in 2030, will cost £265 billion.
We all know phase 4 is going to be kind of disappointing, and you know
what makes you suggest that? It doesn't say how long it's going to be.
I'm pretty sure it's something like 38 kilometers. Or or maybe they said it would have normally covered 38 kilometers squared. Maybe it was something like that.
Yeah. So, do you think it will ever be built?
Well, that's the other thing. It's very optimistic. I don't think so. I think they'll probably do a short version of it, as in the first phase is probably one block, and then that's basically just like a dystopian, like a Judge Dredd, like mega city skyscraper, isn't it? And that's, I don't know. I mean, that would probably be better to do in other countries. Like, do a skyscraper that's mirrored, that's in the countryside, and it's self-sustaining. But even that just makes you feel like you don't want to be trapped in this place your whole life. It feels like doomsday prepping, like Ark, end of the world.
It's the sort of place that I can imagine like the setting for a post-apocalyptic world. Like, and you're introduced to the film and it all looks great from inside, and then you see outside and it's just like horrific.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, especially it feels very kind of isolationist, doesn't it?
Yeah. But yeah, so that will be interesting. The Line, even the name sounds like dystopian.
It's so like brutalist and just like to the point. It's just like The Line.
The Line. Hey, it'd be people in the desert being like, our only safety is if we reach the line. We need to travel. It'll be like the green in Mad Max Fury Road.
It felt kind of Mad Maxy to me, in that that would be in stark contrast to this like diesel punk nightmare that's going on outside.
Just need to reach the line.
And there's people like, I was reading a comic recently, had stuff very similar to that actually, but you'd imagine like people trying to throw grapples up on this wall, and there's like guards shooting down at them, like,
or they get there and like one block's been built and it's abandoned. It's just construction. They're like, no,
it's a bit like
in Fury Road.
Or like Logan, when it's like the coordinates and they're like, there's nothing there or whatever. The false hope kind of thing.
Well, hopefully we don't get to that future. But that is project news for the week.
A nice little juicy one there. A little bit more content than we've had some weeks, isn't it?
I've found
a big news week.
Struggling to find project news. If I then search like Project NME or things like that, there's more stuff that I can find.
It's certain writers clearly like using the word project, don't they?
And there's lots of like music projects and stuff. I get various different like football stuff, but I'm like, you wouldn't really have anything to say
that's
on that.
it. And it's what's kind of vaguely, broadly, accessible. Yeah, that's right.
But so we are on episode 3 of the Lazarus Project.
We are, or Laz Ep 3, as I've written in my notes.
A show created by Joe Barton, starring Papa Asidu, Tom Burke, Anja Mahidra, Caroline Quentin, Charlie Clive, Lorne MacDonald, Vinette Robinson, and Brian Gleeson.
Yes, in a very small role this time, considering what happened to him in the last one.
Yeah, he's still in it.
Yeah, he's in it very, very briefly. Because it's a time-traveling show of sorts.
So last episode...
Yes.
Before we get into this...
Yeah.
The series had an overall rating of 7.1 and the last episode had a rating of 6.9 on IMDb.
Right.
Do you think...
I think this
the rating for this?
I think this is mid-sevens.
Okay. Do you think the series rating's changed?
What was the series?
7.1.
Maybe gone down just because that's kind of the way things go.
It's still 7.1. I think it's probably going to hold 7.1.
Right. Okay. It's been out for long enough, hasn't it? Now.
Yeah. This episode is also 7.1.
Okay, so slightly higher.
And when I checked, the last episode's actually gone down to 6.6 from when we recorded.
And I do think that's probably fair, but we will talk about our overall feelings.
I think I gave it a 5 last week.
You did. You gave it a 5. I finished off the episode nary a few hours ago
to prepare for this.
Yeah, exactly.
But before we get into this episode, what has happened so far, Sam?
Yes, I was ready this time. And by ready, I meant I realised that you're going to ask me. That's all. So last episode, we had mixed feelings because it spent a lot of time in the year 2018.
It did.
So we begin the episode. George's lovely girlfriend, Sarah. Is she called Sarah?
She is called Sarah. I can see you're not really sure
about that.
Looking
off in the distance. Sarah, she'd unfortunately been hit by a rubbish truck.
She had.
Or a...
Garbage van.
Garbage truck, I think they called it.
Is it? Okay.
I was trying. I thought there was another word. I think I was thinking of dump truck, which is not the same thing. Yeah, she'd been hit by a car. She was in a coma. No, we didn't know what happened. Basically, it starts. She's in a coma. He's like, "Oh shit, this is really bad." The reason she's in a coma is because time got changed back, but that's not really relevant anymore. He is kind of not grieving. He's getting used to the. He's very upset, obviously, because what's happened. He doesn't know if she's going to die, if she's going to pull through. And we spend a lot of time with the episode going between various versions of 2018 where he almost meets Sarah.
Yeah.
Because as a result of his mutation, he remembers all the reset timelines.
Yeah.
And his mutation seems to have been triggered after 2018, but he's got the memories there.
They're kind of flooding
back. And at the same time, we're also seeing how Archie, who's his kind of mentor in the Lazarus Project, we're seeing her kind of blossoming relationship with a fellow agent played by Brian Gleeson
called
Ross.
It is Ross.
And they're trying to stop effectively like a World War III kind of situation in Russia with a general that's been tricked into war and stuff.
Yeah.
And they have to replay the same 6 months, year, something like that. I think we figure out slightly more in this episode how long it's been.
Yeah.
Let's say it's a year, just for argument's sake.
And it's like 10 times.
They do it
like that.
At least 10 times. We see it may be closer to like 15. We don't really know. But they eventually get it solved, and in the result, Ross dies. Archie's very unhappy, and we see a shot of Dennis Reznov. Rebrov. Not Gary Oldman's character from Black Ops.
No.
We see him kind of at the end of that sequence, and we're like, how does he tie into this? Because he is an agent at this point, and then in the present day, he's kind of like a terrorist who has the power of remembering, and is kind of on a way. He's trying to sabotage a
one-man mission to destroy the
Lazarus Project, and the Lazarus Project is a organization that's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. meets Torchwood. But with slightly less interesting characters, maybe.
Take themselves a little more seriously.
Takes themselves a little more seriously, and their job is to stop. What do they call it? Extinction level events.
Yeah.
And their final Hail Mary is to turn back time, and they can turn back to the 1st of July. And once the 1st of July passes, it's a checkpoint each year.
Yeah.
And the episode ends where Sarah passes away. She slips away from her coma. George is incredibly upset, as you can imagine, and he goes to see Rebrov in the holding cell in the Lazarus Project and says, I want to turn back time.
He does.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a very rambly, very concise version of what we talked about last episode.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, and also when Archie is explaining why they can't turn back time, because obviously one of his first things is turn back time to save Sarah, George says.
Yeah.
She mentions a lady who worked for the Lazarus Project who had a baby and due to turning back time didn't conceive the second time.
Yeah.
And she is called Janet. And that's mentioned in passing as an example. And we do find a little bit more about that this episode.
Do. So thank you for the summary.
Thank you for listening, everybody. I'll catch you next week. Bye.
If you want to hear a better, more in-depth summary...
I don't know if better, but definitely more in-depth.
Go back and listen to episode 49.
Yes.
And maybe 47 to give yourself the context of the series as a whole.
You know what? Go back to episode 1, cue them all up, just go to sleep for 70 hours, come back.
No, because they want to listen. Stay awake.
But they've already listened to all of the other episodes.
For 3 days straight listening to the Project.
Caffeine, whatever else you need, go for it.
Yeah, I was in Kathleen then, and I was like, yep, she'll help.
Kathleen can do it. Right.
So this episode opens with a woman who's quite nervous sitting in a toilet stool.
Yes.
2017.
It is. And I immediately went, oh God, it's another flashback episode.
And a lot of it is, but I don't think it's as annoying.
No, and I think, as we were talking about it early on, I think this episode makes the previous one make sense.
Yeah.
And it kind of
agree.
bolsters the strength of the previous one.
Yeah.
You go, oh, that's why they did that then.
Yeah.
And it made me think, oh, this show kind of actually does know what it's doing.
Yeah. We kind of criticized the last episode for being too early in the series.
Yeah.
But actually...
I mean, I don't know if they can do this again, because we don't want to spend too much time.
Imagine if the entire series is actually set in 2018.
Well, 2017 in this one.
But yeah, she's got a pregnancy test.
Yes.
And she is
Pregnante.
She comes out of the toilets and she's at Lazarus.
She is. She's somebody we haven't seen before, and we don't find out who she is for a little while, but it's fairly obvious that she is Janet. And there's a woman who she's like talks to in the toilet. She's like, you okay? We're like, who the hell is this woman? She doesn't work for the Lazarus Project now, does she?
No.
Because she gets shot in the head at the end of this episode.
Is that her?
Yeah. She's like an assistant woman, like an intern.
I remember her name, I just didn't realise that was her.
Yeah, no, that's her,
yeah. So we come back to present day straight away.
No, I think he goes out. She goes out, and then she goes to Rebrov to tell him about the pregnancy straight away.
Right.
And then that's where we make the connection, if we're smart like me, that Janet and Rebrov were involved.
Yes.
And immediately I'm like, right, I can kind of see where he's coming from.
you're right.
And then, back to the present, and it's talking about Lost Glory.
Yeah, so it's this group that Rebrov was working with on this whole bomb plot.
Yeah.
And they're gonna get a bomb apparently.
It's the one that the nuke big boy that he sold.
Yeah.
Or he bought or something in the first episode.
He stole, I think.
Paid someone to let the security go or something, yeah.
And basically Interpol have told them that Lost Glory have got a base in the Czech Republic.
Yeah, 50 miles from Prague. One of them says it sounds like an impotence awareness campaign.
Yeah. And George basically wants to go. They got the plan on going this mission to Prague.
Yeah.
George wants in, and Archie's like, no, your girlfriend's just died. Yes. You should take some time off.
He's like, I need this. And she's like, understandably like, no.
We can't rush you back.
You can't be in the field.
Yeah.
Because it's been like maybe a couple of days at the most.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really not clear, but it's not been long. Although we don't ever see like a funeral for Sarah or anything, do we?
No.
So maybe it's like a couple of weeks, but yeah, it doesn't really matter.
But George inevitably immediately goes to talk to Rebrov.
Yes.
And he's already told Rebrov that
I've written Reznov in their notes. That's why. Yeah.
He's already told him that he's going to help him, so they have to reset times so he can get Sarah back.
Yeah.
And Rebrov's shitting on Lost Glory, being like, yeah, that's shit. I'm just working for them because there's somebody. And he says the key for George is to get the detonator, not the bomb.
That's right. And he says that a detonator can be made, which is kind of insane. And I guess someone's got the codes already to connect them up.
It's kind of ridiculous.
It's because you can't. Yeah, we just let it go for the thing. But he's got a contact, Rebrov, that is in Barcelona, is it, or something?
Yeah, he's like, the dodgy's a bit. The contact's a bit dodgy. You don't know if they'll say hello or cut your throat.
Cut your throat. That's right. Yeah. He says to warn Lost Glory so that they can move out. And take the bomb with them.
What's their phone number? He's like, they don't have a phone number. They've got a YouTube channel.
Yeah, that made me laugh. He's like, are you kidding me?
But he gives him the address of the channel.
Yeah. It doesn't. He says leave them a credible warning, and they'll know what you're doing. And he just goes on YouTube and just comments the Czech base is going to get invaded, go.
Run.
It's not that. He should have been more specific, I feel, given the coordinates or something to scare them. But
yeah.
And he says, Rebrov says, go to Barcelona and tell the contact this couldn't have gone any other way. That's the code phrase.
Yeah. And then he goes to the computer, leaves this comment on this YouTube page. Yes. Czech base is compromised. Run.
Right, that's it. Yeah.
And then we go back to 2017.
Yeah.
And Janet and Rebrov are at the hospital.
Yeah, they
find out that they're having a boy, and they're very excited.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, and then they're at a bar with Archie telling her.
Yeah. That's when we find out she's called Janet.
Yes, confirmation. Janet confirmed.
And Archie's like, you know the rules about this.
This is exactly what we talked about last week.
Get pregnant between July and December.
Yeah.
Between July and December's bad.
Yeah, January and June is good.
Yeah, because the timeline and stuff,
and she says something like, if it's July and December, the worst thing you could lose is a pregnancy. And Janet's like, I've lost pregnancies before, and it's it's not nothing. Don't say it like that.
Yeah.
And she's like, sorry. And she's like, I've been in this longer than you. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And the thing is, almost 2 scenes later, it's very clear that she's made a massive mistake. This. We talked about this last week, but I was talking to Amy about it more as we were watching it. The whole time that you have a child, okay, so all the formative years, the first year that you have with that child, if that gets reset, you have to do that whole thing again.
Yeah.
If you're tired of doing it because you've done it once before, you might forget what you taught them. You might end up being complacent. The child will turn out completely different every time you do those first years.
If you're
craziness.
Part of the Lazarus Project, it is completely irresponsible to have a child.
And the fact that she's having the child with another agent, and as we find out in this mission, they all go on the wet work missions. They don't have backup. It was literally all of them there, because we were wondering that first episode if the SWAT team was called in. This mission, at least, we see it's literally all of the characters we know in SWAT outfits going to this Czech place.
Yeah.
Which means, if the mission goes wrong, both parents are dead. And then if time gets reset, I guess they come back to life. But it's just.
But Archie tells Janet to have an abortion.
Yes.
And she's like, no, I want to have a baby.
She says something like it's in the the rules that you're supposed to at this point.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Yeah.
But Janet. She made an oath to not have a child when she joined the Lazarus Project.
Yeah. They should I get where they're coming from, and the way it turns out is not her fault.
No.
But in a way, she could.
And it is hard to say to somebody, no, you're not allowed to have a child.
Of course. And we're talking about that, this is very kind of but men speaking on women's saying, bodies, but it's
just not feasible.
You're
going to get fucked up. The kids, because even
it's irresponsible.
Even if the pregnancy goes perfectly and everything, it'll get to a point, as you say, when they're like 6 or something, and time's always going to be reset because that's what they do.
Yeah.
And like you said, that kid's going to have a fucked up year of their life.
Yeah. Because, and it's so.
And also, like, they're fucking like special agents.
Yeah.
Any of them could get killed at any point.
Yeah, exactly.
And
that's
you're leaving the kid like without a parent.
Yeah.
Like,
it's not
fair on the child
not great,
you're having.
And I feel like they brush over that a little bit in this.
Yeah.
But we're seeing it from her perspective a lot of it, don't we? So, and what I do like about this, the way that it works, we see a lot of the flashbacks, and we're seeing the flashbacks not as these memories bleeding in necessarily, although some of it might be that because she has the gift too. But we're almost seeing it as her telling the story later on.
Yeah.
Because she's telling the story to George when they meet. Spoiler alert. But she says the baby is due on the 1st of July.
Yeah.
Which is very unfortunate, really, isn't it?
We're back to present day, and George is packing a bag.
Yeah.
He's talking to a photo of Sarah and talking about what would she say about like his packing, being like, oh, bring an extra pair of shorts.
That's it, yeah.
He's clearly like really missing her.
Yeah. He's kind of, I think a lot of the way it's portraying him is that he's not really grieving properly or accepting it because he's of
he
the
knows
opinion
she
that
can come back.
Yeah, which is fair. Like if you were in this world and someone died, it wouldn't really quite mean the same thing because there is a way of bringing them back.
Probably then grieve when on the 1st of July because that's like,
and even then you would have suppressed it so much. I didn't think you would have you wouldn't be able to access the grief as easily.
To get in a deeper side, people process like deaths differently. Like instant death, like being hit by a car, will hit somebody differently than somebody who slowly dies of cancer.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because and if someone's dying of cancer, it's awful on one side because you see them deteriorated, but you kind of get used to the idea of them dying.
But then it's on the flip side of that, it's built up in such a way that the reality doesn't necessarily, after they pass away, won't necessarily be how you think. None of them are good, obviously, but
this is kind of a combination of of dealing with that instant death, but then also the slow preparation of living without them, because in the back of your mind you're like, it might get reset, so
that's
until
true.
It's the 1st of July,
well,
it's
at this
essentially
point,
like them slowly dying towards you get to the 1st of July.
Whereabouts are we in the timeline? Like late July, do you think?
Yeah,
because it's quite soon after the thing that she got hit by the truck, wasn't it?
Yeah,
so maybe early August, maybe, because I think we see because maybe even she died on the 1st of July in the daytime, because I think the checkpoint where they were having sex was the night before he walked her to school. Maybe
were they resetting on the 1st of July?
No, so so the checkpoint was when they were having sex. Yeah, on the going to the 1st of July. Then the next thing we see is him walking her to school in the morning, and then she doesn't get hit by the car. Then he gets a call about the mission. They go do the mission, and then almost straight away it resets. So instant. I think they barely did any time that loop. Maybe.
The bomb's stolen before the 1st of July.
The bomb's stolen, because they're not sure, and they're like, we're going to keep an eye on it, kind of thing. Yeah.
Anyway,
he goes to Barcelona on his own.
And he goes to a building, knocks on a door, and it's kind of the door's open, so he walks in.
I think that's just for like mood and suspense, because there's no reason why the door should be open there.
And as he's looking around, a woman appears behind him and puts a gun to his head.
Yeah.
And he's like, Rebrov sent me.
Yeah.
And we camera pans and we see it's Janet.
Yes.
And it's like, what?
And he says this couldn't have gone any other way. And then she puts the gun down
and says, how much trouble is he in?
Well, she does the annoying thing, which I think is such bad writing, where she goes, how much? And he goes, how much what? And she goes, how much trouble is he in? It's like, no one speaks like that in real life. Like, there are ways that can work. Like, you could do half questions that are misunderstood, but that is just like, that's just pure writing, and it's not.
Like, even if it's like, how fucked.
Yeah.
Like, what? And it's like, how fucked up is
the
situations,
or like how fucked is it? There's ways of doing that. It screamed. I kind of criticized some of the writing in the first episode, and I feel like there's overall I don't think it's bad, but there's little bits that shine out to me. It's probably the person who writes it has these little signature kind of unintentional things.
So he's explaining the situation to Janet. And she explains that she was in Lazarus. He says that Red Rob hasn't told him much. But he needs her to make him a detonator.
And she mentions about how there was a different code for she said there's one code to kill you and one code not to. And as she's saying that, she's like reaching towards the kitchen knife, and then she just starts like chopping up the vegetables.
A kid walks in,
and a little girl walks in,
and you're like, "Oh, is this the baby that she's pregnant with?" But that was a boy.
Yes, those are the seeds that are planted.
And then he asks, like, "So, what does this couldn't go any other way mean?" And she says, "It means stay for dinner, George."
Yes.
I don't think it does mean stay for dinner.
No, it means don't.
This guy's all right.
Yeah. And then we flash back to 2017. They're having a Rebrov, or as we know him when he's a nice man, Dennis.
Yeah. But Dennis Rebrov is still a really Russian name.
We talked about it last time. He's got like a kind of Midlandsy, like Yorkshire accent.
Yeah.
And
it's got a very Russian name.
It's not, it is obviously people, he could be from two Russian parents and be born in the UK, but it feels like they would just wanted to create this menacing
name,
Russian like villain, and then they just kind of gracelessly like switched it round, and it's just like, oh, it's just like this guy. I mean, I like this episode because we get a lot of him, and he's much more, his background's filled in, and you get to know him a bit, and even just calling him Dennis is like, they've made this conscious switch at Lazarus to call him by his second name to make him more of this like
monster. Like disassociation.
Yeah, definitely.
They've gone to the hospital. The baby is fine. She's having a healthy pregnancy. She had like a bleed, but it's okay.
They say it turns out it's fine.
They go back to Lazarus, and everyone's kind of in the main room watching a screen, and Shiv's on the building with like a sniper.
He's in like the Middle East, and he's got his gear on, and he's like about to take like a shot. And they come in, and they're like, "Oh, Janet had a bleed," and they're all like, "What?" And then Shiv's like, "Is Janet okay?" And it's quite funny. It's like a workplace kind of.
It kind of seems like that's how Lazarus should be, like the camaraderie, and like everyone's actually close friends.
And he's getting distracted almost from this like mission. It turns out we find out later it's like a chemical weapons deal.
Well, they say here, there's a rogue state selling a chemical weapon to North Korea,
right?
And Shiv's there basically to take out the guy making the deal.
And they give him the green light, and he snipes the guy.
And then they're like, "Go for extraction." But everyone's just kind of more concerned about Janet's bleed.
Yeah, it's all very like, oh, we've snuffed out like early like threat kind of thing.
Yeah,
rather than it being anything.
Because it's an early one, they're like, it's easy to like, it's not a big deal.
Yeah. And then she has the baby. We see like a quick montage
of birth. 2 weeks until the
2 weeks, which is just like the worst possible thing.
So
it's 2 weeks early, basically.
And I like, so Shiv goes to see them, and the Shiv we know in the current day is so like moody and like not really friendly. This kind of shows that actually he used to be closer, and this could also have really affected Shiv, particularly with the revelations that come up.
Totally. And I think this episode is, I would say, miles above the previous one.
I'd agree.
And it was just it was a filler episode effectively, wasn't it? Because we could have had all of this in this episode, but it just wouldn't have been as
But Shiv's at the hospital, and he talks to Rebrov, and he says, "Look, I shot the wrong guy at that thing."
Right, is it then that he says?
And Rebrov's like, "You just got to get back out there and kill the right man, because like we've just had a baby." And it turns out North Korea as a whole was a decoy, and they have no idea where these weapons are.
Right. Okay. So they knew they were on their backs.
They basically said they've got 2 weeks to locate and kill, or they have to reset the timeline.
Yeah. So the stakes are really...
Red Bob's aware of that because he's an experienced member of their team.
Yeah.
Which is scary because they've just had a baby.
Yes.
And we're back in modern day with George and Janet.
Yeah.
And she's talking about she's got a history of Red Wolf, but she can make detonators.
Yeah, there's also jokes about her supporting Crystal Palace, and he's like, "Oh, that's why you want to blow up the palace, the planet."
He's a Spurs fan,
and he says, "No, I just want to turn back time." Bingo! Ding, 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 ding.
Yeah, drink every time they say turn back time.
And he says, like, "Oh, I heard what happened. Archie told me," and she's like, "I bet she didn't tell you the full story."
Yeah.
Because we kind of expect this to be kind of like a tragic kind of step in like someone's story rather than like the thing it ends up being.
Yeah.
We don't get told
it's kind of much worse than you first think.
It's much worse. And it gets worse as it goes on. It gets so much worse. Yeah.
So, I mean, had you figured it out at this point?
I mean, I hadn't figured out the second part of it.
Because, I mean, spoilers for the listeners?
Yeah.
That's fine, fuck it.
I hadn't made the connection with...
She realised she was pregnant in 2017.
Yeah.
And then she's had the baby and it's 2 weeks to the checkpoint. So I was like, well, that's summer 2018, isn't it?
Right. Yeah.
So... we know what happens in summer 2018.
Oh, right.
From the last episode.
Yeah. But it's not that though, in a way.
No, but that
is like,
yeah,
no, I hadn't thought about that yet.
Like, oh,
because it was only when they're at the airport, like, we're just gonna go on this simple mission with Ross and Archie. I'm like, oh, okay, kind of thing.
Right,
like, it took me that little, yeah. But we're 2 days from the checkpoint.
Yeah,
and the arms deal is still. Or maybe the arms deal's been done now. I think
they still can't find the weapons, I think.
Right, okay. Yeah.
Janet says that she's really scared that they're gonna have a reset.
Yeah.
And basically nobody's talking to Janet and Dennis.
They've kind of frozen them out a bit because they're like, if you get updated, it will just stress you out. So we'll just do our best, kind of thing.
And then we get 19 hours to the checkpoint, and there's still no update.
Yeah, and they say like, in the end, it wasn't Lazarus that told us, and it was Rebrov's CIA contact.
Yeah,
and there's like quite dramatic. She's in the bedroom like with the baby, and he's washing the dishes, and his mobile phone just goes off. Yeah. And then he's like looking at the phone, and she's like comes into the room, and it's all very like they don't want to pick up kind of thing.
Yeah,
it very kind of rings true with like a phone call you don't want kind of thing.
Yeah,
like really,
it's like God, they kind of know what the phone call is, but they don't want to pick it up and confirm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, they're just hours away from the checkpoint, and they hear that there's been a detonation in China.
Yeah.
So Redbov and Janet jump in a car to drive to Lazarus.
Yeah.
And they're told there's a chemical weapons attack in China.
Yeah, she comes in, Janet. She's like, look, that's just in the countryside. There's nothing there. And they're like,
Wes is like, that's a Chinese military compound.
Yeah.
And the Chinese are blaming America.
They said the fleet is attack ready. Russian and Chinese military are both, blaming America. And she's like, it's a code black. We're going back.
Which is like, that is as code black as they get.
Yeah,
really.
And the way this is handled by everyone involved is worst possible thing. Like, so Janet, understandably, because she's just had a baby, goes there and brings the baby. I get that. She can't leave the baby on her own. But she walks in with a baby, okay? Red Rob's with her, being pretty pathetic, to be honest, through this whole thing. He's kind of like you see sometimes like the partner of somebody is like just not getting involved, and they're just like, I'm here to support you, honey, but I'm not going to like do anything. Yeah. And I understand it's super stressful and there's like world endings. Everyone there is just awkward. They don't know what to do. And they're all like, we know this baby is going to disappear. if we turn back. But no one's saying anything. I get that, awkward. And Wes is just like being like the fucking stone cold bitch that she is. No one tries to explain it to anyone. Okay,
but like,
I know that she knows, but they should go, if this becomes World War III, millions of babies will die. It's millions of babies versus your one baby. I'm sorry.
I feel like
no one even says that sentence. Do you know what I mean? They're just like,
I feel like
they're like, fuck off, Janet. We're going to kill your baby.
I feel like they don't need to. Like,
I just feel like
they're all experienced Lazarus agents.
I feel like because Janet goes, I'm doing code black, and she just starts walking off. She's like, get on with your jobs. I think she should have said it's millions or one. I feel like she should have.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
but I haven't got a choice here.
She's no one empathizes. I mean, everyone's like very hesitant to do what Wes is saying. They're very like, should we do it kind of thing. They're not like all cold, but they're all. I think everyone handles it badly. Like Rebrov should have been like, let's go straight away. I don't know. It's just,
but like
it was a good scene. It was a great scene, I thought.
There's only one choice here.
Yeah. That's what I mean.
They have to reset.
It's just it was hard to watch in a lot of ways. And the actress, I can't remember who she is who plays Janet, but she did an incredible job with those last few minutes there. Like,
for the most part.
I mean, some of it's funny.
Her crying is ridiculous.
But it felt that it's that kind of guttural, like death wail kind of thing.
But yeah, like Wes walks off to her office, and Janet and Rebrov are just kind of left there like begging.
Yeah.
And Janet's like, look at the baby.
Yeah. She's like, look in his eyes, and Wes just like looks at the baby and just walks off.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. I like that, but I think it was great for the program.
Yeah.
Because it really
a horrible scene.
It's a real twist on what we've seen. As you say, like we see them as this family. We saw them all doing karaoke.
Yeah.
And we're aware they're like stone cold killers, but it does a great job of really seeing it through Dennis and Janet's eyes.
Yeah. And then as Wes goes off, like everyone's clearly quite sad.
Everyone gets a little bit queer there, do they? Yeah.
Everyone's clearly quite sad, and Shiv's even crying.
Yeah, he goes out to see them because they're just like sitting on the floor in like the yard, just like crying. She's just holding the baby. Yeah. He's like leaning against the post, and Shiv's just like, I think he says again there, like, I'm sorry, I got the wrong guy or something. Like, kind of.
He's clearly like blaming himself for this whole situation.
Yeah.
Even though he was sent out on the mission.
Yeah.
And then we see the
flashback kind of
the effects.
It does a little like yellow. It is a bit like a rewind, isn't it? Like,
it literally is.
And this time we see them wake up, and luckily the alarm clock they have has the year at the top of it in case they forgot which year they were in. So it says 2017 just to remind us. And it's tragic. She kind of goes to grab the baby,
runs off crying.
And no, this is when Shiv comes to visit them a little bit after, and he says like, I'm really sorry, I got the wrong guy.
Yeah, and Janet's like, I don't want a debrief. Like, I don't care. And he's trying to explain himself, and he's just like, I'm sorry.
He's like, I'm almost like, I'm not here for a debrief. I'm here to apologize.
Yeah. And then we're back to modern day, and George is like, that sounds shit.
Yes.
And Janet's like, that wasn't the end.
Yes. And this is where you're like, okay.
And then she's like, you can sleep on the sofa, and tomorrow we'll start working on the detonator.
Yes.
And it's like, oh,
yeah.
Right.
Like, okay, that's the worst of it. Not.
So now we're in Prague.
We are. And this is the part I was thinking of earlier. There's the strike team are there, and you can see Shiv's there, Archie's there, and we see a couple other people that we haven't really spent any time with yet. I wonder how many flashbacks we'll get. The Danes flashback.
Yeah.
The French girls flashback.
We might get a Shiv flashback.
Yeah, it'd be. I'd like a cold.
We've had an Archie.
I'd like a cold open of Shiv just living through all the disasters as a child throughout. That would be. They don't really do like cold opens, but they could do something like that.
They're at the Lost Glory compound.
Yeah, which looks a lot like somewhere that you play paintball in. Do you know what I mean?
It does.
It's a little shack in the forest.
And Shiv's asking Archie if George is okay.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, of course he is. And he's like, yeah, like really?
He says something quite funny, like, we've trained him up and he's been going around the world thinking he's James Bond, and then he's lost his girlfriend. Like, he's not going to deal with this very well, or something like that. Which is funny, because I think we said something about James Bond in that first episode, or maybe he makes a joke about it when he's being trained or something.
But maybe. But they go inside. It's like a barn.
Yeah, it's kind of like a big, cabin-y barn thing.
And they go inside and it's empty, and they like there's like pizza there, which is the obvious sign that they've left in a hurry.
Yes, they should have gone. Still fresh pizza.
Yeah,
the Czech version of Domino's is.
Obviously, they saw George's comment, but then they see like a big like board with like plans on it, and they're like, oh, there's something.
And there's like, I think what are supposed to be little hand drawn sections of maps, is it?
Yeah.
So it's maybe potential places where the bombs are or something. I mean, to be honest, if you're going to escape somewhere, you probably want to at least rub out the maps off the board. It seems, unless these are like decoy things to like trap them later. We don't find out in this episode.
But we're back with George and Janet, and he's like, I also lost a baby.
Yeah.
He was like, it's not the same. They weren't born, but it's still a fact.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, it's not the same.
Yeah, and there's something where George is like, oh, how come Dennis wants to destroy the world then? And she's like, he doesn't want to destroy the world. It's like, well, I mean, he doesn't, but a lot of what he was going to do would have destroyed the world.
And she's kind of like, he's just hurting.
Unless his plan is like a bit of a, Loki from Avengers, like he wanted to get kidnapped so that he could take it down from the inside.
Yeah.
That might be where it's kind of going.
But it seemed like he was a fully committed member.
Yeah, but I mean, as in, like, now he's captured in the base.
Oh,
Because as we see at the end of this, he's kind of intent on sabotaging it at the core of the time travel. So maybe that's where it's going. Because, if he doesn't want to, he kind of does want to destroy the world, doesn't he?
Yeah, because he said his whole argument is that the world has ended.
Yeah, it's ended countless times.
It's meant to end. It keeps trying to end because it's meant to be over. It's unnatural that it's not over.
But it's a weird way. I don't know if that's true, though. I don't know if he's being honest with other people, because the way this episode ends, and we'll probably better talk about it at the end, but
I think
it doesn't seem that he's as like nihilistic as he comes across.
I think I think that's his thing. So that's like, oh, that's a cool motive.
Yeah. And it's like going by Rebrov instead of Dennis. It's kind of like maybe he's self.
But I think like
remade
in reality, he just hates Lazarus, and
that's
wants
what
them
I mean.
To pay.
Yeah.
And like the way to make them pay the most is by stopping them doing what they do.
But what if, like, by doing that he blows up Barcelona and then it doesn't get reset? It's like, well, the two people that you care about in the world are gone.
But he's already lost so much. He's got nothing left to lose.
Apart from his estranged wife and someone else that we'll find out about.
Well, she's estranged.
It's his daughter. Yes, so George says that, and then we get a flashback
back to 2017.
Do you think the next one's going to be full of 2016?
Oh, I hope not.
You know what? They didn't do any music. When they were driving to the airport, they could have had some 2017 top hits.
Oh, 2017 top hits. I'm going to quickly look at my Spotify best of
2017 top hits UK. You know what's number one? Ed Sheeran, Shape of You.
Was that 2017?
Despacito. Another Castle on the Hill, Ed Sheeran. Human, Rag and Bone Man. He's from around here, isn't he? Local.
Yeah.
Wasn't he at a pub when we were all there?
I don't think I've
Maybe
ever
you
seen
weren't
him.
there, no.
I'm looking through my. Oh, there was the and Shakira released an album in 2017.
Yeah, we're talking about like hits though, Lewis.
Yeah, okay.
There was Chainsmokers song. Oh, Dua Lipa, New Rules. What a bloody banger!
They could have played Mastodon, Show Yourself.
They could have played Havana by Camila Cabello.
Oh yeah, that would have been the 2017 song actually, wouldn't it?
Havana, ooh,
they could have.
Oh, Wild Thoughts, DJ Khaled and Rihanna.
Yeah.
Wild. Don't delete the kisses.
Don't delete the kisses.
Absolute. Okay, it's definitely that. What about
Kesha, Rainbow was 2017.
Oh, Drake Passion Fruit, that was pretty big.
Thundercat, Them Changes. I could definitely imagine George listening to that.
Yeah. We've got
Look What You Made Me Do.
Look What You Made Me Do. Who's that? Taylor Swift. Yeah. Look What You Made Me Do. Yeah. What's this? Is this the singles chart I'm looking at? Albums was Shape of You from sales only. So it would be Shape of You or Despacito based on these sales.
You could also listen to one of the 5 King Gizzard and the Wizard albums from 2017.
Okay, so a new game. Okay, right. Because we spent quite a lot of time talking about this episode. All the main characters we talked about, which King Gizzard album from 2017 would they listen to the most?
Right.
Okay, so Shiv would be the like doom metal spoken word one. I've forgotten what it's called.
Merge of the Universe.
Merge of the Universe.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Although thematically, that title works better with Red Roll.
Yeah. This is a hard game.
I know. I'm actually having to open up that. Oh, I could look on the shelf there, but it's a bit dark in here. So.
There's Polygon Wonderland.
Okay, you know what? I think
Brunswick.
I'm thinking.
Gumboot Soup.
Gumboot Soup would be
and Flying Microtonal Banana.
Oh, God. Okay, that's difficult. So I'm feeling George would be a Flying Microtonal Banana guy, or
I was thinking maybe Sketches of Brunswick.
Sketches. He seems like a jazz guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he seems like a jazz guy.
Red Roll probably Murder of the Universe.
Okay, Red Roll's Murder. But no,
but
Dennis is
Dennis is like a Polygon Wonderland.
Yeah. We don't know enough about Janet to make a decision on her, I don't think.
No.
But let's just say that
Archie is a Gumboot Soup.
Archie's Gumboot Soup, yeah.
Flying Microtonal Banana. Who do you reckon? Oh.
Started playing it there. Flying Microtonal Banana would be... I mean, who else do we have? Sarah. Well, we know Sarah kind of like poppy kind of stuff. So, we'll go with Flying Microtonal Banana. Okay. It's not poppy at all, but it's got some nice kind of melodic kind of stuff on there.
It's really annoying I clicked on that because I'm like halfway through like a 5-hour playlist and I wanted to listen to the inside.
The only problem with our theory that they all listen to those different albums is that some of those weren't released until... I mean, Polygon Wonderland was... that would have been, I think, like...
There was one that was the 31st of December.
Yeah, that was Gumboot Soup was right at the end because that's the odds and ends of the album, the rest of the album. Polygon was, I think, November. I remember it coming out because I was working in an office and I was super excited to show this other guy who listened to King Gizzard and he was like, oh, I don't really listen to King Gizzard that much. And I was like, oh, okay, fair enough.
So anyway, that's what they would have been listening to in 2017.
Someone make like pictures where each of them are wearing the different t-shirts or like holding up the albums.
Yeah,
that would be great.
Janet and Dennis are at the hospital again, and well, look at this, she's pregnant.
Yay!
But it's a
lady,
a baby girl,
a baby lady,
and Janet's kind of confused about this. I think at this point she realizes that it's not going to be the same baby.
Yes, which I thought they were going to go down a different route and have her not kind of bond with the baby because it's not the same one.
Yeah, but I think because it's essentially like she her child died and she's just had another child rather than it being the same child.
And also, I think probably something that helps in a way is that her body didn't have 2 children.
No.
So she's not had like the physical
toll.
like even just the physical toll of giving birth, but like hormonally, like, you know, like her body resets back to where she was. So in terms of like, you know, the chemicals that go with like bonding with a baby and stuff, that resets.
It's just
because I thought it might be a bit of a lazy trope to be like, she didn't bond with the second baby because she still mourned the first baby.
She still lives mentally. She's gone through it all.
Yes.
And it may help her with the pregnancy because she knows what it's like.
That's true. Yeah.
But yes. So
summer 2018.
Before that, we've got Janet and George going to get food with the daughter.
Yeah, I didn't write anything about that.
And George makes a joke about the detonator.
Yeah.
And she's like, Rebrov used to joke a lot.
Yeah.
And he asks, what phase could he have said that would have made her kill him?
Yeah, what was that?
Big plans are afoot.
Right, okay.
And she would have beaten to death with a saucepan.
Even though she had a gun in her hand, but she probably would have let him through that first bit and then beaten him to death with a saucepan.
Yeah. I suppose he said the plan when he was in the kitchen with her.
I think that despite the Lazarus Project being potentially quite a small scale operation, that they probably should have had someone surveilling where Janet lives, and also George, yes. And they're just walking around like a market in Barcelona.
Janet kind of run off into dark.
I think she's like a bit of a fugitive.
Yeah,
because as we see, she kind of is that me moving that around?
No, it's me kicking it.
I think she's ready to kind of up and leave at any point, isn't she? Which must be a great life for that.
Yeah.
3. How old is that kid? Like 4?
Yeah, we're not sure what year we're in.
4 or 5.
4.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're back in 2018, and they're at the airport going on a mission, and Rebrov turns up, and she's like explaining the plan to Rebrov, and he's like, "Why am I out the loop? Like, why are you not telling me this stuff?" And I'm just like, "Oh, you're not out the loop. Like, you just got stuff to deal with. Like, tell Janet we miss her."
Yeah.
And they kind of go off, and Rebrov's like, "What the fuck? Like, you're just basically cutting us out."
Yeah, I can
because none
of
you want to face the fact that you're all complicit in killing our child.
Yeah, I mean, they're all on very kind of good terms, considering they were like they all pretty much pushed the button on that baby dying, didn't they? Yeah, it is a little bit. I didn't think about that until just then, but I mean, Shiv is very like he's kind of mates with them and kind of seems to be reaching out.
Yeah,
but everyone else we don't see.
It seems like everyone else is built in this mentality of that everything happened after the reset just doesn't really matter.
Yeah, which is
hard to compare to two people who had a baby.
Yeah.
But anyway, a bit later on, Archie then calls Dennis, and she's like, "Things are escalating. We're gonna have to do a code black."
Right. Yeah. So that did we say? Sorry, I was getting something up for a later segment there, but but yeah, did we see they were at the airport? Did you say that bit already? Yeah. And that was the bit from what I was saying earlier where they're packing and they're like, "Oh, it's going to be a quick one," and we're like, "No, it's not. This is going to be the most times you've reset the whole time we've seen."
So they said things are escalating. It's going to be a code black. And she puts the phone down and that on top of the building from the last episode. Yeah,
they say there's like chance of a missile strike. I think they call her they call him a couple of times, don't they? Yeah.
And the missiles go past and you're like, "Oh fuck. Yeah, we've got to go this.
Yeah, and I think this was really effective. And I think
and you said, it made the last episide better because this wouldn't be as impactful if we hadn't seen the last episode.
Not at all. And I think that was as I said before, it made this episode so much better. And I think in some ways you could say it's not super strong screenwriting because the second episode on its own, exactly, and this one wouldn't have been as impactful without. But you could argue that a series that comes one after the other, the fact they're bolstering each other is a real strength there still.
So then we see all the different missiles attacks that keep happening. And we see like Janet becoming more and more disinterest each time.
Did you say she gave birth?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I zoned out.
Or maybe I didn't, but she'd
given
birth.
She goes to give birth, and then it's straight after is the part where
the missile strikes.
Yeah, I didn't write that down, so maybe it skipped over it a little bit.
But this bit, you see her getting more and more disinterested with every birth.
Yeah, so the first one's super intense.
Yeah, and eventually, like the nurse like gives her the baby, and she's just looking the other way.
Yeah,
like,
she's fully like checked out, and there's some revelations here that reminded me of our discussion of Ms. Marvel last episode, because she says, as it was happening over and over again, she realized that the gift that she had. So first of all, Janet, was a mutant. She had it, so she is the other person that I think they said there was 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So she's one of the people, which is why they recruited her. I think she mentioned at some point.
Yeah.
And she realizes by looking into her daughter's eyes that the gene has been passed on, and this baby remembers being born every single time,
which is brutal. Although, is it the same baby?
It is, because she was pregnant before. So every time they come back, she's sitting on the bed with the baby, and she's got a big belly. She is having the baby and then living out months of her life and then resetting. So exactly what we said earlier.
And a baby can't comprehend that.
She's having the worst part of the whole thing in some people's minds. And
the baby's like constantly crying at this point,
which is probably because it's traumatized, because it keeps going back into her stomach as well.
The baby's like 10 years old
in some ways. Like, or at least 5, between what we were saying, 5
in
and 10 years
terms of
old,
like memories.
But without like that kid is fucked up.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's the same. No, it's not the same for Shiv, because he managed to. Like
thing. It's like the repeating. Janet's just getting more. Like Rebrov is super pissed off at Lazarus for making this happen, and Janet is just slowly breaking down. At one point, she's driving through a tunnel with the baby in the back crying, and she's on the phone to Rebrov, and she sees a lorry, and just turns and crashes into the lorry,
and it
because
resets.
He's like code black,
and it resets, and she's like, he's fucking like pissed at her, and he's like, how could you do that to? And she's just like, she's like that
just
shit.
Giving birth over and over and over, and she was like, she thought it was never gonna end.
She says she just thought it was endless. And then we see, I mean, it's awful, that whole thing. And you just see, like, because the way they do the birth is so, like, I wouldn't say visceral, because you don't see, like,
but it's clearly in pain. But you
see, like, the effort and everything. And you can see her going through that. And the way it's shot is almost as if she's reset into the moment of giving birth. Yeah. But we know there's a little bit in between that. Yeah, and you say, you see her like expression change as she's just like dissociating from the whole process.
And then we finally get to the bit where Ross goes into the restaurant and blows up, because we know that's when they finally do
and we
it.
see the little shot of Archie like calling up, being like, please turn back. And then we see the shot that I mentioned earlier of Rebrov listening intently to this at Lazarus. And then he's like, right. And we're like, okay, we see why he was so interested in the situation there.
He is deeply invested.
He had a personal interest in the situation.
So Rebrov immediately, obviously, storms down to Lazarus.
He's there, isn't he? He
storms up to see Wes. And he's like, I need to see the machine, because the whole deal is she's the only one that can reset. None of them even know what it is.
She always just makes a phone call and says, "Code Black, time to go." And we found out from Archie in the first episode, she says there's not a machine that does it.
Yeah.
But they're also in the dark about it.
That's the only thing he's got that's going to be a big reveal towards the end of the series.
This made me kind of interested, because he even says, like, he's like, is it a secret cabal of like millionaires? Is it like aliens? He says. And I'm like, oh shit! You know what? What did we say last episode? Episode 51 is an alien episode. There we go. We did it.
Wes is like, there's no machine. And he's like, who you call in? As you said, secret society, aliens. He's like, I need to know who we're working for.
Yeah. And she's like, I'm the top of the chain as far as you're concerned.
Yeah, you're working for me.
Very like, oh God, like what's going on here?
Yeah. And he's like pulled a gun.
Yeah, he pulls a gun in,
he's
in
getting
her
quite
office,
hysterical.
and it's just him, Wes, and this woman that was in the toilet, Faye, with Janet
and
at the start.
Tells her not to leave. He's like, no,
He's like, it's fine for you. Just that's before he pulls the gun out.
Yeah. And then a guard comes in and he just shoots the guard. And you're like, shit. Like Rebrov has like lost it. Like he's got to breaking point and he broke.
Because what we didn't see in those flashes, the repeats, we saw Janet like losing her grip on the situation. We didn't really see how it affected Rebrov too much.
It was very like internalized for him.
Yeah, he was just kind of getting on with it, but obviously suffering as well.
Because she was the one going through pregnancy and giving birth, it was a more visual toll on her.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it worked, as you say, visually for like the film making side of it as well.
And then he says kind of what we know as his motive of like, the world wants to die and we keep stopping it. And he aims a gun at Wes and he's like, I'm going to stop Lazarus playing God. I'm going to destroy the machine.
Yeah.
And Wes is a bit dismissive of it and he turns and shoots Faye point blank in the head.
Yeah. She's just like, drops dead.
That's like somebody personal to them as well.
Yeah, and it gets Wes a little bit. She's like scared and she's still very steadfast in her beliefs.
But like the guard is just a guard.
Yeah, he's just a guy.
Like a friend of theirs.
Yeah.
And like he's like aiming the gun at Wes.
Yeah.
And then suddenly there's the gun at the back of his head.
Yes.
And it's Shiv.
It's Shiv.
And it's like, do you know what? I think Shiv is one of my favourite characters.
Yeah, you know what? I'm liking Shiv
because
now. He's got depth to him, definitely.
He really does. And like he kind of gives this outward exterior of like, oh, I don't care.
Yeah.
But he clearly
he
really,
cares
really
like
cares.
more than everyone almost.
Yeah.
Because we were very dismissive of him in that first episode because he's like very emo and he's just like, oh, I don't care about the world.
He's just internalized everything. He's very emotional. He gets Rebrov to drop his gun and then Rebrov like fights him.
Yeah, they have a little bit of a wrestle and he's trying to grab the gun off him and stuff. And then he grabs the gun and just runs out. Or, he runs out.
He knocks the gun away because Shiv goes and he runs out and he runs out the building. Shiv chases after him.
I thought it was funny because Dennis gets into his like, it's a very like dad car. It's like an estate car and he just drives off in that. And you're like, oh yeah, they're secret agents, but they just have normal lives outside of it.
And Shiv jumps in a car and follows and Rebrov calls Janet.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm sorry, you need to run.
Yeah.
And she's like, what have you done? What's happening? He's like, you need to go. I'm gonna destroy Lazarus.
Yeah.
And she's like, fuck. I think like she's not overly surprised because she knows the emotional toll it's put on both of them.
Yeah.
But she's still like, oh fuck, like he's broken. Like it's finally crossed the line for him.
And considering as well, if her emotional state, like a couple of minutes before, she was murdering herself and her baby.
Yeah.
She's clearly not in a great situation. So it's a pretty dick move on his part of just like fucking the whole thing up.
Like her whole mentality is like she's going through hell over and over again, and now it's over. But the fact that it's over and they've been through that kind of gives a moment of clarity.
Yeah.
And that's when Rebrov's like, fuck, this is all shit. Like, what the fuck is this?
Because that part's over, but that could happen again next week. It could happen again that night,
and the fact of the matter is they've been put through so much by Lazarus. The worst thing, like repeatedly having your child taken away from you and then having to go through it again over and over again. Like we said, like 10 times at least.
Yeah, at least. Because I think we saw the missiles, you said, like about 5 times.
I think it's like 10 times.
10 times, yeah.
And then we get a quick shot of George and Janet, and George is like, I'm so sorry you had to go through that.
Yeah, and I think that kind of ends there a little bit. And then he wakes up on the sofa and she's packed up the whole flat and gone.
I heard there was sirens going on and I was like, oh shit, but it was just
I think
outside,
it was just
like,
there, yeah. And I did think it was kind of impressive she managed to pack everything away without waking him up on the sofa. But I guess he's just like knackered,
and
isn't
she's
he?
probably not really unpacked.
No.
And he goes into the kitchen and there's like a present on the table.
Yeah, I think it's like an old biscuit tin with like a bow around it kind of thing.
And he opens it up and it's a detonator.
Yeah, and there's a note saying like, I hope you get her back or something like that.
Yeah. Or like, I hope she's worth it or something like that.
Yeah.
Something about Sarah.
Something about Sarah, yeah.
And he goes, sits on the bed with a detonator, flicks the switches and
I
turns it on.
I think that skips to him back in his own flat. So he's managed, which is another thing we have to ignore. He's managed to get what's very clearly a detonator through airport
Is it
security.
back at his own flat?
It's in a different place, and
Is it not just back in the bedroom?
I'm pretty sure it's back in his flat.
That doesn't make any sense.
Because he takes it out, he unzips his bag on a bed.
Oh, yeah.
So he doesn't just take it into another room. But I think the point of that is that he's now back in London, and
and he activates it.
And
he looks up at the camera and stares intently at us.
And then the episode ends.
Yeah.
And you know what? I was like hyped at the end of that.
Yeah, I was like, fuck.
Because we really both liked the end of the first episode where we see off screenish the Sarah being hit by the truck, and you can see it coming. It's telegraphed nicely. And this felt more like that compared to the second episode. It was very.
It seems like as much as I wasn't a fan of the second episode, it did build up to this well.
Exactly. Yeah.
And now you're like, shit. This episode was like, it was really well done of being like, oh, it was like, oh, here's why the villain is a bad guy, but fuck.
Yeah, and it like we said, it played off the previous episode really well, and certain bits like even the reveal of Janet. If you're paying attention, you know, but then it's revealed. The part where she says, "Oh, it wasn't how it went," kind of thing, and then again, like you say, when you find out that it's going into 2018, you're like, "Oh shit!" Yeah,
it's like they've taken there's you can imagine like a kind of soft, playful show about a team who reset time now and then to save the world.
Almost more like maybe I say early Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but first half of season 1 Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
A bit playful, and then people have been like, "Oh yeah, but in reality, like." That would be really brutal and hard. Yeah. And that's what they've made a TV show about instead.
And I appreciate that. And we say about it taking itself seriously, and that sometimes isn't always good, something taking itself seriously. But this is a real drama of that rather than like it's not really like a globe-trotting adventure, really. It is about the human side of it, really.
Which I really like because like you can show that stuff and it'll be like cool and whatever. Yeah. Showing the emotional side gets you far more invested in it as a whole.
I'm just thinking, can you imagine if this had come out pre us doing the podcast and we just watched the last episode and we're like, oh, this is fine, like something happened with a bomb or something? Like, I don't really understand this, and we look it up and it's like, oh no, there's a pretty complex background going on here. It kind of goes to show that maybe you shouldn't watch the last episode of stuff and review that on its own. No, there is something to that method still, I think, and I don't think we would have watched all of Fleabag, would we?
It's 20 episodes, as we know from the quiz last week.
22.
No, it was.
No, I said 22.
Okay, I was gonna say, like, was it? But yeah, I thought this was the best episode. Yeah.
Where do you think it's gonna go? Because I personally think that they're gonna long out his plan as much. But I think him turning on the detonator is just like an example of, it's.
You're right.
I don't because realistically, also, if he blows it up, if they're not near the phone to do Code Black, he might just like end the world immediately.
Well, no, because like
I guess it would just start World War III.
The chain of events. They can always make. I think.
I feel like he's gonna go back to Rebrov next episode and be like, "I've got it. What are we doing next?"
Yeah,
which is a shame because it would be great if they just skip straight. I'm not sure if it.
I would like them to just do it.
Yeah.
And then the next episode dealing with like Lazarus being really pissed off of him.
I don't think they would be able to find out though, because if you think they would eventually, because they didn't even know
it will be
him being like keeping his head down and trying to be normal.
And then being
with
like,
Sarah, be like happy with Sarah. And Rebrov's escaped and he's kind of like, I don't really want to go after
Red
like,
we need to go get Rebrov, and he's like, man,
not Dennis, not my friend Dennis.
And then being like, oh, it's really quite fortunate that Sarah's back, isn't it?
Yeah,
he's like, yeah.
That would be good, but I feel like
I think if it doesn't happen next episode, it'll happen the one after.
Yeah, I do think he'll probably go back to. He shouldn't because he knows, But I guess the weight that's on him is if he blows it. Like if he literally blows the bomb and it doesn't have the result he wants, he's just got all these people's lives on his.
Yeah.
And he still does in a way, whether he does it or not. It's a good kind of moral
that's the thing
situation.
As well. We don't know where the bomb is. Like it got set off.
This is what I mean. What if it's like next to Lazarus.
But it was in the first cut. It was in Paris, wasn't it?
And this time it was in the Czech Republic outside. That was where it was.
Yeah, but it might have been going on its way to Paris or something.
That's true.
But
I think it had come from Paris because it was.
He might detonate it, and it's in the middle of a field. So yeah, he might have to go to Rebrov and be like,
"Where is it?
I need to detonate at the right time, otherwise they."
I think they'll do a bit of a like pressures on. He's got the detonator in his flat, but he doesn't want to. But
I'm excited.
Forward to it.
We'll come back to.
So what was that? So that's episode 3, and we've got 8, have we?
Yeah.
So we're approaching the halfway point.
Yeah, next time will be the halfway.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where it goes.
We'll probably do it in 2 weeks. We'll keep up every other episode.
Because I think after last one, I wouldn't say I wasn't deflated about the whole thing, but I wasn't as sure they could kind of pull it off as I am now.
Yeah, like the fact that we're kind of committed to doing this, kind of want it to be good.
Yeah, I mean, if it's bad, we can just skim over it a little bit more and just talk about other stuff.
Do 2 episodes at once.
Just keep comparing King Gizzard albums to the characters.
Yeah.
See how accurate we can get.
Yeah, George is a real infest the rat's nest at the moment, isn't he?
Yeah.
But yeah, so do you want to give ratings for this?
I think. See, after I listened to it, I was like, after I watched it, I was like, I really like this, and I was thinking, like maybe even like 8, but I think the episode on its own is probably like a 7, but in context is like an 8. So I don't really know. Like, I think in terms of enjoyment, I'm going to go with an 8. I'm going to be I'm going to be positive about it.
So yeah, in kind of an opposite way, when it finished, I was like, yeah, I enjoyed that. It's like a 7.
Yeah.
And then talking about it, I'm like, actually, I think I might go for an 8.
Yeah.
So I'm also going to give it an 8.
Nice.
It's
8's across the board.
Yeah, like revisiting and being like, oh yeah, shit. Like
it's the consequences, and they've built up this very small world very well. The one thing that we've spoken today about the other members of the Lazarus Project. Yeah. We've got enough time to get to know them, but I'm worried that by doing so, we'll lose focus on the main plot a little bit.
But we can still have things like George and Archie haven't had the conversation about Ross dying.
No.
As a comparison to Sarah. She may even get bitter that Sarah returns.
Yes, that's true.
Because she didn't get Ross back.
Yeah, because she's the main kind of characters really are George, Archie, and I guess Rebrov now,
yeah.
Based on screen time. So yeah, it will be interesting. And I think also going back to what I kind of mentioned earlier, Rebrov says to Janet that his plan is to destroy the Lazarus Project, and we saw that he wants to almost stop the method of the turning back time.
Yeah.
So I do wonder if it will become more of a, now we can see that, more of him doing like maybe trying to escape the thing and literally destroy what's going on, or it makes it less, he's much less two-dimensional, and the stakes are, I wouldn't say higher, but they're different and they're more personal.
Yeah, and it's kind of more interesting than just
much more interesting.
Faceless bad guy.
Yeah, and I guess again, going back to what we said earlier, I was like, oh, they've changed it from this like faceless Russian bad guy, literally because we don't see him in the first one, to something like this. And I was kind of critical earlier in the episode, but I think actually they've probably done that quite well, really.
Yeah, because in the first episode we see a glimpse of like his eyes.
Yeah, we can see he's like a bearded man, and it gives, I suppose it's playing on the expectations and they subvert them in this, and it's very effective, blah blah blah. I'm eating my own words a little bit, but
they wrote that well. They really got you there.
Yeah, well, some of the writing is still lazy. The dialogue is bad, so fuck you, Lazarus. That's me, Dennis.
Yeah, so I think that is Lazarus episode 3.
That's it.
Like I said, we'll be doing something different next week, but we'll come back to Lazarus in episode 53.
We will.
This will be interesting when we revisit at episode 100.
Oh god, we're gonna have this
because
6 episodes of Lazarus.
6 episodes of Lazarus.
Whew. Well, one of them can be which King Gizzard album was George.
Yeah,
you can't say which one's Shiv because it's the most obvious one.
But we won't think about that for another year.
Yes. Right.
But that does mean that now at precisely 10 to 9 on a Thursday
9
evening.
minutes to 9.
On a Thursday evening, obviously that won't be true for anyone listening.
I mean, it might be. They might be listening on the following Thursday.
If you manage to like time that perfectly, then...
I mean, that's some real Lazarus shit right there.
Yeah, that really is. But no, it does mean that it's time for
personal projects.
This time it's personal
projects.
Wow, you did that without looking at me. Oh, quite often we lock eyes as we say personal project.
I've got faith. I feel like we've done it enough times that I can...
I mean, we fucked up the first few times, I think.
Yeah, but now we've been doing it for like 10 episodes now, so...
Yeah. What have you been watching, reading, doing, dancing, singing, jumping, striding?
I have been striding on my way to work, but it's not much to talk about. We'll talk about Comic-Con in a bit.
We will.
But on Monday, I watched The Sea Beast.
Oh, you did? Yeah, okay.
And do you know what? I was listening to last week's episode, and you were like, "Oh, you never watch what I recommend." So fuck you. I watched The Sea Beast.
Nice. What do you think of it?
It's good. I had good fun with it.
Yeah.
It's obviously a kids' film and it's quite predictable at times, particularly toward the end.
Yeah.
But no, it's fun. I liked the sea beasts.
Yeah, some of the action, I think, especially one of the first big action set pieces where Carl Urban's character is kind of getting involved, running around, jumping. The captain jumps in. All of that, I think, is like...
It's cool.
It's good stuff. And there's a bit of a kaiju fight with the crab and stuff.
When they get to that island, Christina was like, "Oh, it's like Skull Island."
Yes, it is.
And then when the crab is fighting Red, the main sea beast, she's like, "This is Godzilla for kids, isn't it?" I was like, "Yeah,
like, hell yeah, it is."
But no, it's good fun. Like it was. One bit I kept being confused about was when they were in the sea
I was
going to
say this. The nostrils were just like glass.
Yeah, and they're going underwater and they're just sitting like on the edge of the nostril.
It didn't really make sense.
But no, it was good fun. I like the monster designs.
Yeah, cool.
We get the like green horned one early on.
Yes.
It's quite cool. The crab and then the main red one. The little baby blue ones.
Yeah.
They're all quite fun designs whilst being quite kiddie.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of How to Train Your Dragon.
Definitely, yeah. I think early on, Amy predicted that it was going to be the way it was going to go with the story, and she was like, "Oh, it's quite like How to Train Your Dragon." It's like, yeah.
But I think it's been getting quite good reviews and stuff.
Yeah,
so I wouldn't be surprised if they made a sequel.
It would be interesting to see where they go because the way it ends is, as I was saying, kind of like Pirates of the Caribbean, where it's like it's the end of an era.
Yeah, but like you could have like
I think
some people go
ahead
and
a
hunt
bit.
sea beasts.
Get that kid, get a different voice actress for that little.
Oh
kid.
my god!
Do you know what I mean? Like the worst part of it.
It'd be like, "Hello there, aren't you a bit cold in it?" It's like, what?
It felt like somebody who wasn't English doing like a passable accent, but throwing all of these like.
It was like they had a fairly posh accent, but then they'd throw in the odd like Cockney word.
I was really hoping in that first scene that it was going to skip ahead and be like, "Now I'm a teenager and I'm on the boat." And it's like, no,
really
there has to be a
bizarre.
child for the kids to empathize with.
Like the kid was a bit annoying, but I didn't really mind them too much.
It didn't really
detract
too much. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Like Cole Urban's character was good. The captain of the ship was quite good fun.
Good kind of
and like
depth to the character.
And he kind of turns out to be the villain in part,
just because of kind of circumstance.
But you kind of understand how he's got there, and I like the whole like fake history side.
Yeah, it was really interesting, and because almost from the very start, she's reading the books, and we see the king and queen on the pictures, and it's like, oh, they're probably not good people because the portraits are like Tim Burton-esque, like evil, skinny people.
But you kind of like you buy into the fact that they've been at this war with sea beasts for generations,
and then it turns out that
just been hunting
They say at some point, like, oh, after this, we won't ever explore those parts of the world. So I guess that's kind of open to, like you say, like a sequel where it's, in this part, there's a civilization of beasts or whatever.
Yeah, you could go to Beast World, but you could also just have like
Beast World,
like a rogue group determined to restart the hunters and
because the way it's kind of shown is that some beasts like the crabs are just primal things, and even maybe the green one that was killed earlier might have just been a bad sea beast, but the fact they were indiscriminately killing them is the problem.
Yeah, and you see with Red that like she sees the Navy ship and gets angry and goes and attacks it. Like, there is clearly anger on both sides here.
I like that they've got like the really like modern ship, and the guy's just like, this isn't gonna do anything against it, and he just goes straight through it when they fight.
I was talking to Christine about it after. It's like, it's all good and well the humans saying they're not gonna attack the sea beasts anymore, but has anyone told the sea beasts this?
They're suddenly just
they are still just like animals essentially.
No, it's
good fun. I'm glad I watched it. And
good,
do you know what? The only reason I watched it was...
Oh, right. Here we go. You gone back on it already, have you?
On Monday, I was going to watch The Boys. And I pressed my Prime button on my TV remote and Prime wouldn't load.
I was like... You pressed the Netflix one instead.
So I was like... So I pressed Netflix.
And it served it up to you.
Through and it came up to the CBS. And I was like, Sam recommended that on the pod. I'm going to put it on.
Nice.
And enjoyed it, and I've recommended it to people at work as well.
Good. Okay, yeah. Well, that's good, because that means they probably will do a sequel from those 3 people that have watched it.
Although the person I recommended it to said they watched the first fight and then turned it off. They said they'll come back to it. They just got a bit inside of that fight, and I was like,
I mean, I know,
and it does change something. That's just like the big action opening.
I was very surprised with that opening, and I said that on the pod, and I thought it was some of the action stuff I think was really the standout part for me. I think it was really good. I've been watching something completely different.
You've been watching Pirates of the Caribbean?
No, so it was something that we revisited that I've watched before. Amy had watched like 2 episodes, but it hadn't been the right time to watch it, kind of thing. It's Phoebe Waller-Bridge's Fleabag.
Yes. I was talking about that work today because we're talking about TV series, and we saw that last year BBC Culture had ranked the top 100 TV shows of the 21st century.
Oh, really?
And I was getting someone from work to guess the top 5.
Okay. It was Fleabag in the top 5?
So it was The Wire, Mad Men, Breaking Bad, Fleabag, and Game of Thrones.
Apparently Sopranos is the best program that has come out.
Former guest Kane quite often insists.
And he said today in a group chat with
which is part of the reason I've never watched The Sopranos.
I watched the first 2 episodes, it was good, but it's a lot to watch. I just can't.
But Fleabag.
It's
I also keep getting a TikTok of a moment where she's with the guy who plays Moriarty in Sherlock, and she turns to the camera and he's like, "What are you doing?"
Oh, that's such a shame, because that's quite it's not really a reveal, but it comes in season 2. But say it's are you aware of much of it at all? You don't really know?
No, I don't really know anything about it.
It was her kind of breakout. She tried to get it made as a TV show, and it didn't get picked up, so she put it on as a play, and it did really well. It has a lot of fourth wall breaking, as you saw from that. So she would have turned to the audience and said stuff, and quite often it's kind of darkly comical stuff. Someone will come on screen or whatever, and it is very dark. She's had some very traumatic stuff happen, which you find out throughout the first season, and she's dealing with it with like anonymous sex and like just running her life into the ground. She's got a family that don't really like her, but it's done in a very kind of, I would say, lighthearted way. It like ebbs and flows. Like it's funny, but there's hard hitting moments.
A bit BoJack.
I would say, you're very spot on with that. And the great thing about it is that each season, first there's 2 seasons, there's 6 episodes and they're 20 something minutes long. So in 2 hours you can knock the whole thing out. And it is one of those ones where
so how long?
20 minutes.
Each episode's 20 minutes?
Each episode's 20 minutes.
Oh, so I thought it was like a
45
minutes
no,
to an hour.
it's short, and it's all on Prime.
I'm not actually watching it
like
then.
I think it is. So season 1, I think, is I'd say, harder hitting in different ways to season 2. Right. Andrew Scott, the Irish actor who plays Moriarty, he's only in season 2. Right. I think it's sad in different ways, but honestly, I watched it about a year or two ago, and I thought it was fantastic. And it was when I was unemployed, so I was watching it in the evenings, drinking, sitting here, kind of being kind of a little bit existential on my own.
Oh yes, that's the sort of mindset I usually watch BoJack in.
Exactly, yeah, drinking, all that business, and
questioning why we're all here.
Yeah, it's very that. But I would say the first episode. So this is what turned Amy off. There's a lot of her turning to the camera, and you have to get used to that, and it's jarring. And we watched 2 episodes, about a year ago, and it wasn't right for what we were, it was, the tone was wrong. So anyway, we came back to it and watched through the whole rest of the first season, second season in like 2 days, and I would highly recommend it. I think it is one of
Prime.
It's on Prime, yeah.
I thought it was BBC for some reason.
It is, but it's on Prime for some reason. But
let's hope my Prime button works this time.
Yeah, but yeah, I would really, really recommend it. I think there's a good cast. Olivia Colman's a character in it.
Yeah.
The dad is an older Scottish actor who you'd probably recognise. He does the voiceover on the repair shop. So you probably recognise his voice. Very nice.
I've got like 4 episodes left of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Right.
4 episodes left of Umbrella Academy season 3.
I haven't watched 3 yet, but that's another thing we're caught up to date on that. So yeah.
And a season and a half left of The Boys. I just want to clear them all out. Just finish them all.
The other thing I was going to mention, we jumped back into Daredevil because I mentioned Unmatched. We've been playing the Hell's Kitchen expansion quite a lot. And me and Amy, I've watched it all before, but we got to like 3 episodes from the end of season 2, so like a really good spot, and just stopped watching it. Oh, and then it went off Netflix for 2 weeks or whatever. So
it's on Disney Plus,
and now we've picked it up. So at
least you can go back in at a good point.
That's it. Yeah, we went back in like as all like Frank Castle's on the run for like the second time. The hand stuff's all building up. Elektra's just gone rogue. Like it's all building to I think we've got 2 episodes left, and so we'll finish that soon. And I think maybe just jump straight to season 3. Yeah, I would like to watch Defenders just to see that, because Amy hasn't watched any of the other, a bit of Jessica Jones, but no. But see,
else. that was my problem. So I've probably mentioned on pod that I watched season 1 and 2 of Daredevil, and then to follow the character, watch Defenders, and got halfway through that, I never went back to it.
Does it not really come...
It's
the only thing...
the only thing is, Defenders is fine. It's better than some of those, but it's nowhere near as good as Daredevil.
Right, because the only thing that I'm thinking, and I know that Amy listens to this, and she might even be listening at the door, as she does sometimes, without spoiling the ending of season 2, there is a character that is prevalent in... defect. Do you know what I mean? And
I just feel like it's
I feel like and I also feel like that doesn't matter if you skip straight to 3.
Yeah.
Also 3 has you know who, he who never misses.
Oh yeah. But I think you could just read over what happens in Defenders,
I mean, I don't
and go into see, but Amy could.
Yeah. I think it's also I like the idea more, the idea of the group of the heroes for hire.
It's just not very well executed.
No, I think we'll see. Yeah, see how we feel. I think anyway, so that's what I have been up to.
Yeah, so the last thing to talk about really is Comic Con.
Yeah, so generally, before I start looking at the articles I've got open here, just for some reminders, what kind of stuff did you see that kind of excited you? I say, what stuff did you see? I started screenshotting and sending you announcements as soon as I saw them.
Yes, and that is all the stuff I've seen.
Okay.
Which I then did send on to my brother, who's also a big Marvel fan, and we were chatting about it. So obviously,
we've had Black Panther is announced as the end. Black Panther 2 is the end of phase 4.
Yeah. So I'm just going to say some standouts.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Avengers: The Kang Dynasty.
Yep.
If you've listened to the Silver Screen Project at all, you know that we've been looking forward to Kang for ages now.
And we've still got 3 years to go, baby.
I just hope they do use him before then because of the character.
He is in the poster for Ant-Man 3, so he is coming, don't worry.
He could be killed in like 4 films before Avengers Kang Dynasty.
Because of all
the character.
The variants in the time travel.
Again, same year, we got 2 Avengers films in 1 year because Secret Wars, which I saw one theory that's why they're throwing in loads of new characters now, because Secret Wars is such a huge event in the comics with so many characters.
Yeah.
So they want to build up a huge collection of characters.
Yeah,
for
that makes sense. And I think it would be a good chance to bring back. They do a bit of cameo stuff from previous stuff.
Yeah.
Get the Garfields, get the what's he called? Maguires. Get the Garfields, get the Maguires, get the Jackmans in.
But I think there's so much.
Oh, because it depends.
With Secret Wars.
Because what I'm thinking, so Secret Wars, the original Secret Wars is what's in that episode of Spider-Man the Animated Series where he goes to the planet, he gets the black suit. They might wait until then to see the black suit. I feel like they won't.
But like,
but the recent Secret Wars is conversions of universes, which means there's multiple versions of characters,
which I think is more likely to happen
because they mention conversions in.
Thing.
Yeah, of course.
But like the films obviously never completely accurate to comic storylines. Like,
do you think they'll do mutants in their own bubble until then?
That would make sense.
That would make sense.
It'd
but
be a good way to introduce them.
It would. But can you imagine if mutants are introduced in I suppose they could do 2024 and then have a year of setting them up and their backstory and then mash them in. Yeah. I think saying mutants are there all along would make people roll their eyes a little bit.
It wouldn't really work. Fantastic Four in a couple of years. We've had 3 Fantastic Four films.
We have. And this will be number 4.
Yeah. 1 really bad one and 2 not good ones, but
I think in hindsight it's a bit like the Star Wars prequels. People are like, oh, there's a charm to them.
There is a bit of a charm, particularly Silver Surfer.
Yeah. Who will hopefully be played by Keanu Reeves in the new version.
But they're not actually good films.
No.
So you know what? Let's get a good Fantastic Four film. Yeah. Thunderbolts could be interesting.
That's the end of Phase 5, so that is the team up movie. And
are they going to do like a Suicide Squad?
I think that's the idea, and it will be that woman from Seinfeld who turned up in 2 things.
Yeah, because it could be all sorts of different. Obviously, Thaddeus Ross actor has passed away, so you can't have Thunderbolt Ross.
No, but
which is weird for the Thunderbolts.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, but it'll be like in memoriam of Thunderbolt Ross.
Unless they just have him as Red Hulk and just have a guy.
That's what I was thinking.
As Red Hulk, Thaddeus Ross.
Because there was some historical controversies about the actor coming up in the years kind of leading up to his death. I think there were rumors that they were planning on replacing him with a CGI character anyway.
Right.
So I'm not saying that
because he's
they're happy about that, but
because he's Red Hulk in Thunderbolts.
Yeah.
But
you know what would also be amazing, and I've just googled this to check the name of the character. Martin Freeman's character in Black Panther.
Oh yeah,
is called CIA agent Everett K. Ross.
He is.
And can you imagine if Martin Freeman becomes the Red Hulk of this universe? I think that would be enough of a connection. They could be like, oh yeah, I'm his son. No one mentioned that. And then just go for it.
Why would you bring it up? Like,
because you can imagine he's like such a small guy, and him being a Hulk would just be fantastic.
But then, like Mark the Ruffalo isn't exactly a big guy, is he?
There's the bingo.
He's not a huge guy, is he?
No. Well, as we saw from the TikTok that we made about his height.
yeah. I forgot about that until I was looking through our TikTok today, and I was like, oh yeah, we did a whole thing on like the height.
We've also got a couple others.
One other thing. The last other thing that I'm really, really looking forward to is Daredevil Born Again.
Yeah.
Obviously, having just spoken about Daredevil.
Yeah. But you said you broke the news. 18 episodes.
18 episodes, which is actually mental.
Yeah.
All these Marvel series have been like 6 to 8 episodes.
And it's so funny because I personally have complained so much about how the Netflix episodes are stuck at 12, 13, and they've just gone, fuck it, 5 more.
But like, you have to think that they are doing it for a reason. The fact that it's so different.
I reckon it's like 2 or 3 things, and
like
it will
story
be,
arcs.
and it will be but even broken up over like a year. So they release them,
okay.
or maybe even over like 3 years.
I want 18 episodes released at once. One continuous story arc of him fighting Wilson Fisk from Hawkeye. You know, that character that's in Hawkeye.
The one with the Hawaiian shirt and one eye.
But yeah, I mean, Charlie Cox will
fantastic.
come back.
Well, apparently there was news reports recently that he was turning down projects at the end of season 3 because he was sure they were going to do a season 4. So he kind of hamstrung his own career.
He's so good as Daredevil.
He is arguably one of the best parts of the MCU.
I genuinely think he is, and like, I stand by that. I think Daredevil's my favorite Marvel series of the modern era. Like, maybe animated Spider-Man.
I saw people posting like, this is how you get something like this done. Like, it's fan support, it's constant. Like, it's gentle protesting. It's not release the Charlie Cox cut. It's not like sabotaging other things.
No,
it's not
just being like, we really like this guy.
Support. It's even like, not to pat ourselves on the back, but talking about it on multiple weeks of a podcast. It all goes somewhere, doesn't it?
Obviously,
hello Marvel.
Spider-Man No Way Home had lots going on and lots of highlights, but the Daredevil scene in that was a standout.
You know what? I'm gonna remember that forever. That reveal. I had no idea. Know what? I'd watched. I think I might have watched Hawkeye already, or I knew that.
I hadn't though.
Yeah, I think.
And I still remember the moment in the cinema where he turns up, and I went, and kind of my arms went out with you on one side and Christine on the other side, and you kind of did the same.
I kind of grabbed your arm and I was like, "Oh my god!"
And Christine on the other side went, "Fuck off!"
She'll never understand.
But I was like, "Oh my god, it's Charlie Cox!" And catching their break. I'm a really good lawyer.
Apparently that was originally a snow globe, and it was like a Mysterio snow globe, and they edited it into the brick in post production because they thought it was confusing, but it was supposed to be like a representation of like We Love Mysterio kind of thing. So that's interesting because we obviously never would have known that otherwise.
So that's my standouts for Comic-Con.
Just other stuff that I've noticed here. Captain America New World Order. So it'll be Sam Wilson's first solo film. Should be cool. I've no idea what New World Order would mean, but I imagine something pretty large scale.
Will they bring back Hydra?
I kind of hope they do. I kind of
sounds a bit like Nazi-ish, doesn't it?
Yeah, I kind of like in the comics they're just being like Hydra just keep popping back up, and the fact it's partly Shield's fault, I guess, a little bit, but partly the fact they keep popping up. They've not keep popping up is kind of a bit of a missed opportunity.
What they should do is have Hydra repop up, so they go to see somebody who's dealt with them a lot and bring in Quake.
I was listening to our episode talking about that, but I keep seeing stuff on Instagram, rumors that she signed on. There's also rumors that they've cast Reed Richards as, you know, that program You about like the stalker guy.
Yes,
that guy apparently is Reed Richards, and he kind of looks like him. I can see that. I can't remember what his name is. A couple other bits. There's some animated stuff. There's Spider-Man Freshman Year, which we'd heard about before. It's supposed to be dealing with the parts of Tom Holland's story we didn't see.
Is it canon or is it like a soft?
I'm not sure.
Soft
I
canon?
think it's like an Elseworlds What If type thing, because they released some.
So there isn't like Harry Osborn and stuff in it.
Yeah, and I think Daredevil and stuff. So unless he does know Daredevil, but it kind of fucks with the timeline a bit.
Yeah.
What If Season 2, Marvel Zombies, X-Men 97, which is the continuation of.
That'll be good.
We've also
I hope they keep the animation style.
Yeah, they've shown it. It's like that, but high def. Nice. It's good.
Mate, in the build up to that, I'll have to rewatch the X-Men series.
We've got stuff like Blade and Guardians and Ironheart.
Blade will be good. I like Mahershala Ali.
I saw some. Well, I didn't read them, but potential plot leaks of Werewolf by Night. So I think it's supposed to be still going ahead.
It's gonna be,
but it's not. It's not on any of the lists they did for Comic-Con. And Armor Wars as well.
Armor Wars, yeah.
The other thing is, I won't tell you anything about it because I know you didn't watch the Black Panther 2 trailer.
I did not.
Do you know much about? There's been lots of stuff about the villain, as it were.
I have no.
Okay.
Oh, actually.
You might have seen a picture of a man in... No?
No.
Okay,
so don't tell me right or wrong, but
am I doing a look away here?
This is being recorded so I can go back to it.
Yeah.
I saw one thing that it was a screenshot of somebody breaking into Wakanda, and somebody's theorizing that it's Doctor Doom.
Oh, cool.
Fighting against Wakanda, and this is going to be the introduction of Doctor Doom.
I would not be surprised.
Going into Wakanda to get the vibranium.
Okay, so you literally don't know anything about it at all.
No.
Okay, cool. There's confirmed big shit happening in this. The trailer, there will be a whole.
I'm sure
it's not mutants, but it might be mutants. But there's a whole thing happening, and it will be a war type situation potentially. The trailer is great. If you're not going to watch it before, go back and watch it after.
I'll probably see it at the cinema at some point.
It's a great trailer. It is very clear that they are accepting Chadwick Boseman as gone canonically, and it deals it was an emotional trailer, not like overly, but like you know when they do good music.
Yeah.
Logan. Think Logan.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like well balanced.
Maybe
trailer.
I should just watch the trailer.
It's good. Also, we got a trailer for the I Am Groot series, which is shorts coming out in about 2 weeks. So that's just gonna
be
drop.
like a kids thing, won't it?
There's something else about She-Hulk, but there's something about She-Hulk, but I can't.
Sam just did a whole big movement.
There's something about She-Hulk I just remembered, but I can't tell you. And I didn't watch the trailer, but I know it from just buzz. You're going to want to watch She-Hulk. That's all I'm going to say. And it's not Mark the Gruffalo.
I mean, I know Mark the Gruffalo's in it.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to say anything.
I did see a TikTok the other day about how, like, She-Hulk is a classic example of, like you'll get, like, a male monster will be, like, really big and ugly, and the female will just be a sexy woman. And people be like, oh, but that's what it's like in the comics. Like, yeah, the comics are the same.
Well, the thing is,
she should be a big, ugly woman.
Here we go. We're doing bingo. The Jason Aaron run of Avengers.
There it is.
They reversed that. She's the Hulk with long hair.
Yeah, that's what she should be.
And it's because she like absorbs extra gamma or whatever. And they do that for like the whole run. And then of course at the end she goes back to being a sexy bitch. You're gonna want to watch it like day one from the start.
Okay, I mean I will watch it.
No, but
when's it out?
I think like the 10th of August maybe.
Okay.
About the same time as Jordan Peele's next drop. Sounds like he's going to the toilet, doesn't it?
I thought he's going to take acid. But yeah, I think that's all my thoughts on Comic-Con. Have you got anything else to add?
17th of August.
Okay, cool.
Not really. I watched like Shazam 2 trailer. It was fine. Didn't really feel anything watching that, but we will be covering that on Silver Screen Project at the end of the year. There's probably more stuff that I've forgotten, but that's the main stuff because we are a project/MCU podcast.
Project MCU.
That's the new name once we run out of things to talk about.
Because there's no podcast about the MCU.
There's no podcast about the MCU and obscure projects across pop culture and history.
No.
Oh, across. That's quite nice. I might add that to the title. No, that's all good for me. So
excellent. So
thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. But if you also want to get a thank you from us,
thank you.
No.
Oh, sorry, that's free. Okay.
Yeah.
I take that back.
Okay, if you want an actual thank you from Sam, then you need to go onto your podcast listening app and give us 5 stars. Or you can get in contact with us directly, can't you, Sam?
You can indeed. You can send us a text if you have either our numbers or an SMS, as it was once called in the United States.
Give us a Facebook message.
America.
WhatsApp.
You can actually message us on Facebook, and by
you can.
you can find us by searching for the Project Pod on most social medias, or you can send us a little email at theprojectpod@gmail.com. So if you want to recommend something for us to cover in the next few months, the next few weeks, feel free to drop us a little suggestion. We have Projectober coming up, which is the spookiest season of all of Project Land.
Spookiest projects.
If you've got some really good suggestions there, please let us know.
We've
got
preliminary
ones,
plans, but we've still got a couple.
We were
months
talking about
finalize.
it mid pod, I think, just off mic there.
Yeah,
a little break in the middle that you would never have noticed. But yeah, we've got some plans, but we will always take on feedback unless it's negative. So keep that to yourself. Bitch.
Yes. If you've been offended by anything we've said in this episode, remember it's satire.
Or
if you agreed with it, that's what we really think.
Exactly.
Bingo!
I was going to say or parody, but yeah. Bingo. That's a bingo. And then we had the on pod planning as well, so that's a bingo too.
Oh yeah, bingo. God.
Bingo. I think that's a full house there. So we will leave it at that. It's been another bumper episode this week, and we will look forward to seeing you next week for some sort of mystery topic that we haven't yet decided.
I think I know what I want us to do next week.
Fantastic. Well, I look forward to hearing that as soon as the mics go off.
I will hear you all hearing me next week.
Yes. And I will see you at the other end of the phone line that she calls in the Lazarus Project.
Ooh.
Fuck you, Lazarus. I'm Dennis, bitch.
Bye.
Bye.